welcome everyone to the Sigma Show, episode 102. I am your host, Sigma. Before I let you know who is joining me this week, real quick, we'll go over what our topics are going to be. Not a ton of news this week, but we do have a couple of little interesting business tidbits that we might be able to get some fun conversations out of. First up, PlayStation has apparently increased the price of a lot of its first-party games on Steam in specific countries. It's very strange and also kind of concerning from like a consumer standpoint. So we'll dig into deep as to maybe what's going on there. And finally, we got a report from Jeff Grubb, who essentially said that some sources let him know that Microsoft was not happy with the sales results of Hi-Fi Rush, which was like this breakout shadow drop hit. And then immediately after, Aaron Greenberg from Microsoft kind of refuted that a little bit. He did use some very particular language, and we'll dive into that and maybe dig into what could be going on in terms of that miscommunication or communication in general. But here to talk with me about these topics, Rachel Kaiser.
And hello, everyone. I am back. I'm sick.
Aw. Get well soon, but also we're glad to have you back, sickness and all.
Yep. I'll do my best. I just might sound a little bit sniffly during this podcast, so I apologize in advance.
Fine. It's fine. We can deal. We've all heard sniffles in our lives before.
We've all been there.
Superman Jeff.
Hey, yep.
Welcome back. And the Fat Stack joining us again.
What's going on, y'all? Go ahead and start the morning right with some Nickelodeon love.
Nice.
You know what I mean?
That is a beautiful coffee mug. Well done. We see you guys in the chat. Thank you so much for joining us. Spartakin Cortana, Lampy, Wraithbow, welcome. So, as we tend to do, we'll usually start up as kind of a warm-up. We share with the class what we've been playing, watching, listening to, reading, doing, like whatever fun stuff has happened to you at the start of the weekend or throughout the week. Anybody feel like diving into some stuff that they've been experiencing?
I'll go.
Go right ahead.
Been a pretty busy week. Yeah, fun. Let's see. I've been playing X Defiant beta. I've been playing that.
How you liking it?
It's it's good. Yeah. It has some great potential. It plays very similar to a Call of Duty game. I do feel like the gunplay is getting a little bit better. Sometimes on certain weapons it does feel a little clunky. On others it doesn't. So I think that is something they're working on, and they are very responsive to a lot of the feedback that they get. Like just from the alpha to the closed beta, there has been drastic improvements. But it is very much Call of Duty like, which is fine. You know, if you're gonna, why not just,
I think that was very much intentional, and I've been playing a lot of the X Defiant builds like internally, like in the company. I haven't jumped into the new open/closed beta. I'm not sure which it is right now. But yeah, like before I worked for Ubisoft, like I jumped into the alpha with you, Jeff, and like it was not that great of an experience. And then from the time I started messing with the internal builds, it had improved by quite a bit then. So I was actually really excited because like I've missed like the feel of like a really quick run and gunny shooter. Because as fast as Destiny is, that's probably the shooter I spent the most time with in recent times. It is a very different thing. Like there's a fairly long time to kill. There's like abilities and stuff. I mean, there's abilities in X Defiant, but it's a little different when you can like float around in the sky.
Yeah, the TTK in X Defiant is very, very low, very, very low. Some guns are just two shots, 3 shots maybe, depending on the weapon. But it is very, very low, which is fine. I'm hoping they lean more towards the different factions. They lean into that more, like make that stand out a little bit more. Like they're there, but they don't have any character or anything like that. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like you just pick them, and that's kind of it. You need to kind of bring those factions to life. I think that's something that is missing.
So you want them to be like more specific characters versus just representative of the franchise?
They don't even have to be specific characters, but they have no life. You pick them on the screen, and that's kind of it. And then you go, and that's it. They don't like the purpose of having these factions is because they stand out. People remember them from other places. You should incorporate something into that to help, bring that out, make it bloom more. That was something about Overwatch that Overwatch is fine, but the characters are what made Overwatch what it is. So I'm thinking that they definitely need to lean into that a lot more.
Yeah, that's definitely a harder ask since they're not using the actual leads from the franchises. It's mostly like X Defined is a combination of the franchises versus like a combination of the characters.
Well, I mean more like maybe some voice lines or something,
I think there are
or
voice lines, but like, yeah, nothing that kind of says my name is like X and this is what I do on the side. You know what I mean?
right,
Like they're not their
right,
own character. They're more so just someone from the world of,
right.
Watch Dogs or Ghost
Like
Recon, etc.
an emote, a voice line in the game, like something like that, to where you say it after you interact with obviously another faction, unless somebody was playing the same faction, and then like maybe it would say something funny like, what are you doing here? Aren't you supposed to be on patrol? Something like that, because they're
Sure.
part of the same faction, right? Stuff like that. A faction I saw that they added, I was glad they added was the DedSec from Watch Dogs.
Right.
I thought that was a great ad.
They were
Once
my
again,
favorite faction to play with. Like I really like the spider.
they have them locked. They didn't unlock them yet. So I'm hoping they unlock them before the beta ends. They have them
I
locked.
bet.
It's cool, but thanks to know. Thank you for letting me know. The Spider Bot was fun in the game, so I'm hoping it'll be fun in this game. But I'm hoping that they once again lean into that. DedSec is all about revolution and going against the man and like.
What's funny is that's also what the Libertad are about, right? Like the Far Cry folks. So like that.
Yeah.
Like they were literally leading a well, I guess DedSec was too, but like a cyber revolution.
Yeah.
So that's all. I guess that also kind of speaks to one of the identity issues with that game is that a lot of those kind of Ubisoft franchises kind of share an identity. Like they share gameplay stuff, and then they also kind of share characteristics in just what you do on a regular basis. Like it's always some sort of fight against an oppressive regime, right?
Right.
Well,
And
I
this-
mean, sorry.
Okay.
Go ahead.
No,
I was just gonna say I played a preview of X Defiant a few weeks ago, and that is one of the problems that I kind of had with it. Is that there didn't seem to be enough differentiation between the different factions, and the differentiation that there was, didn't feel like anything that was specific. Like my problem was more like with the echelons. So I was like, oh, I want to play some, I like Splinter Cell. Let's play something from that series. And it doesn't feel like, I don't think it would take like a complete overhaul or anything. It would take like just some simple animations maybe, or maybe a good, like a good ultimate, like effect or something that would feel a little bit more Splinter
Echelon,
Cell-y.
Yeah.
And I while I was playing it, I was kind of getting the feeling of like, I don't know what Ubisoft is going for here, because it feels Call of Duty-ish and maybe a little bit Overwatch-y, but in practice, it's really more like Smash Bros. It's like it's a bunch of our internal franchises battling each other.
Yeah. I mean, no, that makes sense, and it's like they chose like a free to play multiplayer shooter for that versus actual Smash Bros.
Right.
I mean, all the information to actually tighten up on what you guys are saying about the echelons and stuff. Like they can actually bring in those elements from the different various styles and kind of like do, like a little, like what Rachel was saying, if it's Splinter Cell, bring elements of Splinter Cell or those characters in the game, like why they're doing this and that. Or if you have like, the characters from Watch Dogs, you're saying that element, that kind of, those free to find, okay, bring that element in there. Right? They were this, and this to make it easier on themselves without ever doing any kind of really big changes. They can just take that little piece and just be like, all right, let's do this, maybe tweak it a little bit and give it each its own differentiation with the characters along with it and what they're doing.
I mean, I guess one possible thing they could do is, if we're going to make Ubisoft Smash Bros, there are a few franchises we could get involved with that they haven't had a whole lot of love necessarily. Well, I mean, that's not a criticism of Ubisoft. I get it. Nobody has infinite money. But, I'm just saying, we could have like a cool Beyond Good and Evil map maybe. But also I'm saying some of these franchises right now, I think one of the main like sticking points is that all the characters play like, okay, pick up gun, shoot gun, and occasionally they have other abilities, but that's their core focus is like, and they all have the same guns, and I get it. I get it, but at the same time, I feel like maybe we would benefit from like maybe a character who doesn't necessarily use guns as their primary attack.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know, just throwing that out there, just spitballing.
That is fair. I will say I just remembered Ubisoft technically has a Smash Brothers game in Brawlhalla. Like they publish it, but like they don't. That's not a studio that they outright like control. Like the people who make Brawlhalla
Right.
is kind of like it's kind of like a Nintendo Game Freak situation where like
Yeah.
they're kind of independent, but like that is technically a Ubisoft game, and it's just Smash Bros. So that could be why, like, yeah, they're like, all right, well, we want to do that with some of our military sim-esque franchises, but like, yeah, like they all start to blend together when you put them that close in proximity. Like,
Yeah, like you need them to have them stand out a little bit more. Like they tuned down the abilities. The abilities I feel like were a little stronger in the alpha. Now they're not as strong, and I know they're going for a more gunplay focused game. But also those are ways to stand out. Even like simple customization stuff. I don't mean like full on customization. I mean like you pick echelon. Maybe you want on the Splinter Cell mask. Maybe you don't. Maybe you want on some different type of wetsuit or something. Like things like that. Like oh, I picked the cleaners, right? Maybe I want to play as the big looking cleaner dude and maybe not the small one. Stuff like that.
they do have, I want to say, like 3 or 4 character models for you to pick from within each faction, but like, yeah, like you can't, as far as I know, you can't change anything about the character model.
Right. And this is just me. I don't. Maybe cleaners is supposed to stand apart from everybody else, but you also had well, they were. I don't know. They weren't called the hyenas. They were called what, the animals. I don't remember. Um, in the division. Division had a couple of
Yeah,
factions in
like
that game.
like those black masks wearing.
Yeah. Oh yeah, remember those when you had to find those dudes and they were
Yeah,
super hard?
yeah.
Like, but I guess maybe they're a lot of the other the factions are more militarized and they would fit more militarized as well. I guess the cleaners maybe stand out more. There's
Yeah,
also a
like
couple
yeah, of all the factions in the, like yeah, if you just had like the division agents, then like what's the difference between them and like the Ghost Recon folks? And
right.
if you had yeah, the cleaners are definitely the most unique. Otherwise, you'd have like what, street thugs, like a dude
Right.
with a baseball bat from the
And they don't have
division.
any
Warriors.
flamethrowers. The cleaners we knew them because they had flamethrowers. Remember that? Like
Yeah,
that was their thing. Like where the flamethrowers at?
it's like an ability for them.
Yeah.
Like I
But
know
like
one of them has like a drone
a
that like
drone,
yeah,
yeah.
spits fire, and then like the super for the cleaners. I think you can. I think there's one of 2 supers. You can pick a super for each faction, and one of them is like you get the flamethrower.
That's just my critique. Make them stand out more. Let the gunplay keep getting a little smoother. Let it keep getting smoother. You know what I'm saying? And like let them. They need to stand out. They need to have some identity about them. In order to get people to be attached just from, not just from nostalgia. Oh, I remember them from Splinter Cell. I love Splinter Cell. Then you play with them, you're like, yeah, that wore off really quick. Like there has to be something, to pull people to keep them playing as those factions that they love.
I think that's interesting because it kind of sounds like you guys want it to lean a little bit more into Overwatch territory versus Call of Duty territory. And like I'm wondering if like that was the exact feedback that they got prior, because like you said, like the abilities and stuff were kind of a bigger deal early on, and they have tuned it to where it's like, oh no, like fast paced movement, quick twitch gunplay is the thing that they've sort of started to lean towards now, which has gotten positive reception from like a lot of like creators, like content creators who are like in that field. Like that's the kind of game they like. So like they've been like, I've been seeing videos of like really like crazy movement in terms of like jumping around, doing spins and like doing headshots or whatever, and folks seem to be happy about that. And none of that is highlighting like either the factions or the abilities. It's just how the gunplay feels. So like I wonder if that
Right.
was the feedback they got. All right, well let's tweak it towards gunplay, and now maybe they're alienating people who are like, well, I'm more of a hero shooter fan nowadays. So I'm
And like I
wondering
said,
if this is like a push and pull situation.
I can go with gunplay. It's just that my thing was the abilities were one of the things that set them apart more. But also, if you're gonna go another route to set them apart, then go that way. Like I said, voice lines or something. Like I said, it was a lot smoother. Let it continue to get smooth. Um, add team deathmatch. That was one thing that was missing. Um, Yeah, and I'm glad no microtransactions. So far,
So far.
so far.
There's definitely going to be microtransactions.
Yeah.
So the game with a sprinkle of Apex in there is what it is, pretty much.
And if it's cosmetic only, then yeah, sure, whatever.
Yeah, I'm sure it'll be, honestly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like that's the formula, right? You release a free to play thing, make sure that it has a fun core loop, and then charge them for rainbow guns.
Yeah, because they got another free to play thing coming out. But that's not what I've been playing. I jumped back into Jedi Fallen Order. I didn't finish it, and I remember because I got towards the end, and it was like super hard, and I'm like, man, this game is a lot harder than it should be for me. And then I popped back in recently, and I realized I had it on like Jedi Master, and I was like, oh. Well, yeah, that explains why it was so hard. So I popped back into that, been playing that, almost done, should be almost done with it. Aside from been playing more Fortnite, the Attack on Titan event. Got Aaron Yeager. Actually, me and Will been playing a lot of that. I think we play maybe like 3 or 4 times a week.
Yeah, I've been seeing video of the 3D gear going off in the city and stuff. Like, how does that work and feel?
It feels good. It feels really good. Like using the ODM gear, just like hooking on stuff, and it's kind of like a slingshot, just like it is in the anime. Like you hook the 2 points, you pull yourself in, you let it go, and you shoot forward. Then you pull onto the next port, you shoot yourself, and you can hook onto anything with that too. It has gas, so obviously you can use
really
it
cool.
forever. Yeah. The attack on it is okay, but it's like not that good, which is fine because you don't want it to be that good plus have all that maneuverability. It would just be like unfair. It was a lot of fun. I finished all the DLC. I mean, all the quests. Got Aaron Yeager. That was cool. I will say no build mode is so much fun for me. Like I enjoy just going in there, enjoying the world, having a good time, and yeah, I can say I play Fortnite now.
They got him.
Got him. They got me.
He's one of
That's
them
all
now.
Yeah, they got me. I think me and Will, like I said, I'll pop on Will, but you playing? I'm playing. Yep, let's hop on. And we'll play some matches, you know. So Mr. Blocks. That's all I've been playing. Watching, I've been finishing third season of The Mandalorian. Definitely a okay season. Finished up Sweet Tooth because season 2 is coming out this week.
Oh, you didn't finish the first one yet?
I had like one episode left. I was saving it, so I went back in. We went back in and finished it, and then the second season comes out this Wednesday.
Yeah, I am looking forward to that.
Yeah,
Season 2 of Sweet Tooth.
Yeah, I think the first season was really good. Perry Mason. I've been watching Perry Mason. That has been so good. Like that's not a show I thought I would find myself watching, but now that I am, like it is very, very, very good.
If I've only heard good things about that new Perry Mason.
Yeah, it's really good. Really good.
I assume you're talking about the new Perry Mason.
Oh yeah, not the with the 50-year-old one. What was that? The thing we're in like 40 seasons?
9.
It's close, Jeff.
Yeah, no. What was that? Perry Mason?
To be fair, they made a lot of movies with Raymond Burr after that, but
and then a couple anime. Second episode of the Swordsmith arc in Demon Slayer.
Okay.
Yeah. That's pretty much it.
Nice. Anybody else want to jump in? Like particularly Rachel, I'm curious about if you've been watching Mandalorian season 3.
Yeah, I did. I finished season 3, and I appreciated that we got precisely what they were setting up. I'm not sure how I'm still on the fence a little bit about how I feel about bringing back Grogu into the main story when he was kind of pushed out at the end of season 2 and, sort of like brought back over like the interstitial Book of Boba Fett bit, and just so he can be present for all the stuff that happens. But I do think his presence makes things a little more interesting. It would otherwise be. It occurs to me while I'm watching The Mandalorian that the baby emoting is the only facial emoting that anyone does, and without him there, it might be a little bit too just
Yeah.
straight Mandalorian helmet nonsense.
Okay.
So I like how it ended up. I liked the denouement actually, and I know a lot of people didn't, but I found it kind of fun, and I enjoyed I enjoyed that the baby basically got a mech suit. Like that was the when I was watching it first time, I was like, oh, he got a mecha. Look at my baby.
See
And
that intrigues me to actually want to start it now because I've been because a couple of folks have been really down on it, and I was pretty down at the tail end of Mandalorian. Like I really liked season 1, and then season 2 was good until it wasn't. Like it just very much wasn't by the end, in my opinion. So like I'm like, there's so many other things I want to watch. Maybe I'll wait on this, but I don't know.
I kind of appreciate the fact that, you know, after 2 seasons of basically Mandalorian as single dad drama where we focus primarily on the baby, I will admit I'm actually kind of gratified that season 3 of The Mandalorian is about the Mandalorian and not just one Mandalorian, basically all Mandalorians. So it is quintessentially about the Mandalorian in the like universal sense. And
Sure.
I don't know. I find that kind of satisfying. Maybe it's not the story I expected to get, but you know, I appreciated it for what it was.
It was okay. I feel like it was a very slow build. Like there was just so much a lot of side quests going on, and then eventually, last episode, back to the main quest. We gotta finish this up real quick, and then I mean, don't get me wrong, the side quests were okay, besides the one, but all of them were okay. It felt like so much was pending on that last episode to tie up so many loose ends, and it still didn't tie up enough. I feel like.
Well, there were some weird like tone problems. Like you got one episode which is like a whole, like as you say, a side quest with, you know, like some intrigue in the New Republic and all that.
Right.
And then meanwhile you got one episode that is almost entirely, hey, Jack Black and Lizzo really wanted to be on our show.
So we
Which,
brought him in.
by the way, that is not I will defend that episode to my friggin' grave.
Yeah.
I love that episode. I love that Lizzo got to hold the baby, which was probably the only reason she agreed to do the damn thing in the first place. That was probably the first thing out of her mouth when she walked into that office.
I gotta hold him.
Can I hold the baby? And the answer was, if the answer was anything other than an immediate yes, I have lost all faith in Lucasfilm. But anyway, so I love that episode because we really needed a breather. But I will admit, it is there's a weird tonal dissonance with the rest of the season they got going on. It's a very Clone Wars style episode.
And I didn't mind that episode more so than the one about Dr. Hashner, I can't remember his name.
Pershing?
Yeah, that whole situation there. I feel like that didn't need a whole episode, but you know, I did like you said, the Jack Black and Lizzo one because we got to see battle droids too, so that was cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Nice.
So I could sit here and talk about the Mandalorian for a while, but sure. Yeah, it's okay. Marty's not here, so I will cut you guys some slack. Marty and Omar aren't here. So other than watching, what I've been playing, I've actually been playing a lot of stuff, and a little bit of it I can't talk to you about.
Okay.
But the stuff I can talk to you about is I played Sherlock Holmes: The Awakened remake, which was a lot of fun because I played the original back in 2008 when it came out. So playing the remake, it's weird it's weird but gratifying to see how far Frogwares has come. And that's the sort of game like I wouldn't feel comfortable like giving it a review, like a score or anything, because like I mean, I always try to respect the developers, and you know, even if I disagree with their decisions, because you know, a lot of people have spent a lot of time putting together something that, you know, for me is an entertainment product. So I want to make sure that I like respect the process. But making a game during an actual and still occurring war, that's another level entirely. So, you know, I nothing but respect for Frogwares in that situation. I am not wholly on board with the new Sherlock Holmes direction of basically making him young, hot, and troubled. So that's our idea of like, it's like, okay, we've watched too much Sherlock, and I freaking hate Sherlock. So, you know.
I've only ever played a single Frogwares game, the Sinking City, which was like their Lovecraftian.
Which is funny because this is Sherlock Holmes meets Lovecraft, which preceded Sinking City, actually.
Wow, because I loved Sinking City, and like it just wasn't on my radar as the kind of thing that I'd be into. But like yeah, like they really made detective work in a video game like matter and actually function. Like I felt like I was figuring stuff out in like a really cool, interesting way. Like I love their whole mind palace thing where you're like trying to piece together information that you gathered and form ideas and stuff. Like that all works perfectly well. And like yeah, I'd learned after the fact that like they made a bunch of Sherlock Holmes games, and that's essentially where that mechanic came from.
Yeah, and I do appreciate that, because originally it was just because the first games were made in sort of like that post-Siberia era, where it was like, everything from like Siberia to Telltale's The Walking Dead, that sort of like adventure game dark age, when everything that came out was like a third person point and click. Inventory management is like your biggest puzzle. Or you had insanely difficult puzzles, like with a little game called Keepsake. But again, I could talk about that all show, so I won't get into the weeds on that. But my point being just that in the original Awakened, it was more a case of just like going around solving puzzles externally, collecting inventory items, and like they shortened the whole bit in the Black Edelweiss Asylum, which is sort of like their Mountains of Madness chapter of the game, which I really enjoyed, especially because, like, let's just say mental health treatments were not very good in the 1800s. So that's a whole like bit of homegrown horror by itself. But they shortened that whole bit because that whole bit was basically you going back and forth talking to prisoners, Freudian slip, patients, and getting stuff you needed to like advance to different parts of the asylum. They've shortened that considerably, which is only to the game's benefit. So I like it a lot, and it's like a weird flashback for me to when very young Rachel was playing these games back in the day.
Nice.
So that's a game I played when I was a teenager. Darn it.
But that's cool that they brought it back, and like it's still like enjoyable for the fans.
It is. Like I said, there are some like they've like taken this whole initiative to like for lack of a better way of putting it, making Sherlock Holmes young, hot, and troubled. And I'm not completely on board with that, because that's never been how I've perceived Sherlock Holmes. But again, it's just a different artistic path than what I'm used to. Other than that, and the things I can tell you about, I've been playing some Dead Island 2. I'm working on a review of that, so won't give my whole opinion just yet.
Okay.
And I just got this from the store.
Hey.
I wanted a physical copy of it, and I love this box art.
Yeah, that is beautiful.
Yeah.
For those who might be listening, that's Set Reza and the Lost Demon, which is the Bayonetta prequel.
Bayonetta. Mm-hmm. Because people are surprised I hadn't played it yet, and I'm like, yeah, I know. Because all the games are coming out right now. I'm trying to make time for it, but I also don't have enough room on my Switch, so I got a physical copy so that I could more easily play the game.
Sure.
And all the other stuff I have to play right now. So yeah, I don't think I think that about covers everything. Oh, the Horizon Forbidden West DLC as well.
Right.
Because there's a lot of stuff coming out right now. But I've been enjoying that. I haven't finished it yet. Although, of course, this being the internet, of course, I got spoiled on certain things that happen in the ending already. But it's so nice to see Lance Reddick again. It makes me so sad. Yeah. But it's so nice just to hear his voice again.
Yeah. Or his voice, we'll call it, because he has an acting voice.
Yeah, it's true. It's not his actual spoken word, but right. I feel like I should mention this. I'm sorry, I just was taking the plastic off the thing since I was thinking about it. Anyway, since we're going to talk about a certain Tango Gameworks game later, I quite enjoyed this. Talking about this because I actually my husband and I went to WeebCon here in Dallas a couple weeks ago, where I got to meet the main actor in Hi-Fi Rush.
Oh, really?
Along with several other people. I got to meet a few people from the Attack on Titan cast. And I didn't get to meet Bryce Papenbrook because the line to see his table was around the friggin' room.
Of course.
So, yeah, I got to meet a bunch of other cool people while I was there. Just everyone's so nice. I like going to these conventions. Everyone's just so happy. I got Sephiroth to sign my Seabiscuit book.
What is there any connection or?
Well, George Newbern does the audiobook for Seabiscuit.
Okay.
And I heard his voice more in that one audiobook than I did in like every video game project he's ever been part of, including Superman and Sephiroth. So and honestly, that's one of my favorite books, and I enjoyed listening to it again with him. So I asked him to sign that, and I think probably based on his reaction, I'm the first person who's ever asked him to do that. But I had fun.
Yeah, probably.
I had fun talking to him about why I enjoyed the book so much, and yeah, he's a lovely guy. Everyone there's just absolute, just the best.
That's awesome. I got to get out to more cons.
Yeah,
you do.
Met Troy
You
Baker
do
too.
Damn
It
it,
was cool.
Judge me.
You don't ever be trying to go nowhere. I'm like, yo, let's go. Let's do this.
I don't be trying to go nowhere.
Oh, my feet. I got bad feet. I'm like,
I met Troy Baker too. That was also cool.
Dope.
So
that's pretty cool.
Lots of cool people. I don't think the con is why I'm sick. I think Austin the weekend after that is the reason why I'm sick.
That makes sense. The con would have made sense too, though. To be fair,
it would have, but I don't think it takes 3 weeks for a cold to affect you after a convention.
That tracks.
So,
but does that
yes,
wrap it up?
that wraps it up. I've talked too much.
Rainbow says bad feet. Man was wielding a mouse with his this past week. That's true.
That's why he got bad feet too.
So I could probably jump right into this for my what we were playing then, because I'm still going through Half-Life 2 with on stream with Marty, and I've been very much enjoying Half-Life 2 a lot more than 1. And it's mainly because it's more accessible. Like, it's a more updated, modern version of whatever they were planning to do after the first one. And controllers work, funnily enough. There's no aim assist or whatever, so, like, it's been a little bit of a struggle to, like, headshot and hit enemies consistently, but, like, it's not too much of a problem. But there was a very extended, like, hover boat or, like, river boat section. Like, almost the entire stream was just riding around on this boat. And at some point, you get a gun on it, and there's just nothing on the controller mapped to that gun. So in order to actually use it for a boss fight, I had to put my mouse on the floor and try to hit the left trigger with my toe while I was controlling the boat with the controller, because controlling the boat with WASD just wasn't working for me. So we did beat it. The foot thing didn't help a ton. I did get like halfway the boss, I think, playing that way. But yeah, that's a thing that happened. But outside of that, I really haven't been playing much that I can talk about. And honestly, once I can talk about the stuff I've been playing, I probably won't talk about it here because it wasn't that interesting. But anyway, in terms of watching, I did finish season 2 of The White Lotus on HBO. Nice. And I very much enjoyed the first season a lot more than the second season. But the second season, which feels like a much slower burn than the first season was, finally does get going near the very end. So like you get a bunch of very interesting situations, but the situations are a lot more wacky, I guess you want to say, than what happens in first season. So like tonally, it feels a little different, but bad different, like almost like the feeling or the spirit of whatever was going on in season 1, which was always like kind of this nebulous sort of tale of like, oh, rich people are bad. Like that's kind of just the overarching schema, I guess you could say, for what that show is. Season 2 kind of changed it to just like shit is fucked. Like that's the only thing I can think of in terms of like a mantra for that second season. Because like almost none of the characters are especially likable, which again is sort of true for the first season, except for like maybe one instance. And the one that you maybe do start to like is I don't know. I really couldn't connect with anyone of this season in like a meaningful way, and that doesn't necessarily disqualify my enjoyment of a show if I'm not connecting with them, as long as the plot's good. But the plot left so many kind of unanswered questions by the end. Like there were like maybe 3 or 4 separate storylines, and every single of those storylines had about 2 big questions that felt purposeful. Like the writers were like, hey, we don't want this to be spelled out. We want you to think about it. And like at some point, it's like, well, no, you probably should have just spelled this out, because you left enough clues that led to nowhere. And like that's just unsatisfying in terms of like a mystery box or or like getting a resolution out of a story. Like you see a bunch of stuff happen to a bunch of different people, and then by the end, you kind of know how it plays out, and you don't get that. So it just felt a little unsatisfying. Like me and my fiance had like a really long debate about like kind of what a bunch of stuff meant, only to come to the conclusion that this probably didn't mean anything because the guy wrote it so that you couldn't decide what happened, and that's just a little frustrating sometimes. So I don't know. There's supposed to be a White Lotus season 3 coming out, but I don't know if I'm going to go back to it because it was a bit of a struggle to finish 2. And I only started to enjoy myself until it ended. And then once it was over, I was like, nah, this wasn't good. Outside of that, I finished all of season 1 of Vinland Saga.
Ooh, what'd you think about that?
Just started season 2. Also, that one was a bit of a slow start for me. But it eventually starts to find its footing. And it does a cool thing where you think the story is sort of about one thing, and eventually it kind of turns to another thing. Like it's by the end of that season, it's very much Game of Thrones, and it's like I didn't expect that based on like how everything else was happening. So like it kind of comes out of nowhere, but I did like it because it was interesting, like the dynamics that they were playing with. And it's pseudo set in history. Like I don't know exactly how much they're following. Like I don't know if any of these named characters existed anywhere, but like it's talking about like that whole, you know, the Vikings invading England and then a war between like the English and the Danes, and like there's a bunch of history drops in there, but like I haven't felt compelled to go and look it all up to see like where everything lies, which when shows do like play around in history like that, I tend to do that just so I know like what they're aiming at, like how close to reality is. But this I've just been watching very passively. So I do like it, but I'm kind of waiting for it to get where it wants to go, because that final episode of season 1 ended up like the name of it I think was like conclusion to the prologue, and I was like, oh, this whole thing was a setup. Like the whole first season is just set up for something. All right, now I want to see what happens, like because apparently the story has now started. So I only watched episode 1 of season 2 so far, and it's gone back to like kind of resetting everything, and it's pretty slow, and you don't know what's kind of coming yet. So I'll see how that ends up, I guess.
By the way, the characters from Vinland Saga, some of them are loosely based on people who actually existed, but
okay, so
I specify loosely.
Like, are they like using like approximate names, or is it like for example, like King Swain was an actual king?
I think so.
Those,
yeah.
A lot of those characters are in Vikings Valhalla season 1 and season 2.
Okay, and that also is like following history.
Yes, loosely based on history as well. Yeah.
Okay.
And,
so yeah, I was curious about that. Yeah.
I do think there are probably a lot of things that were not very well documented, so you know it's not necessarily it's not that there's like some text that they're not following. I think they're just taking like what little we know about the people who actually existed back then. But again, I haven't watched all of Vinland Saga, so I don't know for sure, but I do know that some of the characters are loosely based on real people.
That makes sense, because like because the episodes pay attention to like location and time period and stuff in a way where it's like, all right, so they must be pulling this info from something. But of course, it's an anime, so some of the stuff that happens is like this. I don't know if this happened. I don't know if a man threw a friggin' tree like a javelin.
Oh yeah. Well, like you did have some dudes back in the day that side. I mean, that is of course elaborate.
Sure.
But you did have some dudes that was pretty serious size back in the day when it came to like that time period. So, you know, but yeah, a lot of that stuff is kind of hard to, when you're looking for documentation to, you know, try to build an anime like that off of.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't have any issue with them taking liberty and like fantasizing some of like the actual stuff. But like, yeah, it's just like I've been happily watching it passively. Like that aspect of it hasn't intrigued me so much that I needed to get the rest of the full story just yet. And that's a tendency that I tend to have. Like if something's playing in history, usually I'll be like, all right, well, let me go look up the history, and it just hasn't sparked that in me yet. But like maybe it will. I'm still, you know, in the beginning of the second season. Spartan Cortana's asking, good Game of Thrones or bad Game of Thrones? Probably on the good Game of Thrones. Yeah, like it's intrigue, but like
that political intrigue and
like,
you know,
like scheming,
backstabbing and
like it turns into that a partway through, and it stays interesting because it's a little more actiony and like revenge thriller based before that, but like it builds up the intrigue stuff slowly, but it becomes center stage by the end of that first season, and I was enjoying it. And Lampy says finished My Hero Academia, Casey, that season. Dang, I like the most recent season, like it. They paid off a lot of stuff they were building earlier on that I didn't like. So like they kind of retroactively, I don't want to say save the show, but like I was kind of down on it on season 5, like that villain arc. I was kind of down on that.
Oh yeah.
But they knocked it out of the park with everything that came after. So like I can't wait for more My Hero. But that pretty much does it for me. Fast X, how about you?
Well, when it comes to watching, just some random animes this season that's been coming out. Like for me, like Hell's Paradise, Eden Zero. I don't know if anybody's into like the romantic stuff, but like A Galaxy Next Door is pretty good. My Love Story Amada. Yes, and I do have them wrote down for anybody that's interested in watching any of those. So I kind of stay off the heavy stuff. I wait till like later, like My Hero and Demon Slayer. Like I'll wait until like the season's either close to ending or ending before I go back and rewatch them.
Yeah.
I try to watch like the smaller stuff that sometimes get through the cracks that are pretty decent. Their Ranking of Kings came out with its little side story as well.
Yeah, I saw that.
Treasure Chest of Courage.
So that's already out.
Yeah, that's already out on Crunchyroll. The movie Scarlet Bonds is out too. Time I got reincarnated. So if you didn't watch the movie,
yeah, did you watch it?
Yeah, I watched it last night.
What'd you think?
It's pretty decent. I like the fact that they literally sewed that it, like you didn't really see that piece in the anime, but they sewed it in when they had the brother come in there. Well, they say brother, but their ally, you know what I mean, and what happened and everything and why they were gone and this and that. It was a nice little tidbit to kind of, just like an OVA, something to kind of hold you over for the next season and whatnot. So I'm interested to see what they do with the next season. You know what I mean? Because they've implemented another kingdom as well.
Yeah.
So they've already, if you've seen the last season, they already destroyed that one. He became a demon lord, obviously. So now you have that other kingdom in the movie. I wonder if they're going to use it or not. And there's some other elements too. So kind of went that, and that, like I said, it was pretty good for what it was. Yeah, you asked me.
The animation was on point.
Yeah. So when it comes to, like I said, when it comes to OVAs, a lot of them do pretty decent when it comes to that tying into the story or having a missing piece to it. So that kind of like Ranking of the Kings, the Treasure Chest of Courage. So that was a nice little tidbit too that you didn't really get to see. So if anybody hasn't seen the Ranking of Kings, I think that anime is pretty good. If you like anime, that's one of those like I personally would consider. If you're new into anime, is a good watch if you can watch it. So
yeah, I enjoyed Ranking Kings quite a bit.
Yeah, Ranking of Kings was top notch.
So, well, other than that, the other show I was interested, like I barely watch reality as is. Reality isn't my cup of tea these days, because everything I do is literally based around anime. So, Snowfall kind of interested.
Interested. You were keeping up with Snowfall because that just finale'd, right?
Right. So, like, okay, so I have not watched not one episode of Snowfall.
I started it and fell off. I have thoughts about Snowfall.
But I always see little stuff on TikTok here and there. Same thing for like Power. And to me, when you got movies like that, it's all in the same genre, Scarface, and all that stuff. So,
like
it's
modern day hustle movies, gangster movies.
Yeah. So it's just everybody getting a chance to tell a different side of the story. You get to see different angles. But some people might disagree with me, but to me, it's always the same old when you get into something like that. It ain't gonna last long. You know the risk once you get your foot in there.
Yeah,
So
that's kind of the moral of those stories, right? Like,
yeah,
it's
pretty
like,
much.
okay, you see the rise and fall of this, drug kingpin over like all situation like that. I have nothing against those stories. Like, some of them are like really, really good in terms of like just plots and flow and like resolution and whatnot. The thing that bugged me about Snowfall was the main character jumps into that world for no reason. Like, just he has options, which a lot of people who end up in that lifestyle don't. Like, he had options, and then when he started messing around, he got into a situation immediately that should have told him, "Oh, I shouldn't do this." And after the fact, was like, "I think I want to do this," and it just made no like it. I lost complete like suspension of disbelief that anyone would be that stupid. So from that point forward, like I couldn't take anything else that this show did seriously. And like seeing the clips, like you're saying, like all throughout Twitter about like kind of what that guy has been doing and has become, like it all just it seems fake to me, like very, very manufactured in terms of like a hustle story plot. Like there's none of it was believable to me. So like Snowfall, it does not, it just doesn't do it for me. But a lot of folks were into it. Like I've seen like the clip of like the final scene or whatever, and like it makes me laugh. But like other folks were saying that it put them to tears. Like they're like crying over the situation. I'm like, this looks goofy as shit to me.
That's because they spent the whole season with him. They spent the whole season with him. You don't have that attachment. You only watch.
I don't. Yeah. But I also think he's a clown. So there's that.
Y'all got the same haircut too. You didn't notice that, did you?
He copied
me. Yeah, I've seen a couple episodes here and there, but I never really got into it. But
yeah, to me, I mean, like I said, all of them have similarities. Like I said, I've actually sat through Breaking Bad. Breaking Bad was like one of the very unique ones that I've sat through from season 1 all the way through the end. I'm like, yeah.
Yeah, but that's the thing. Like Breaking Bad makes sense. Like that. Like that was the whole point. It was like what situation would push a man into this life, and like what kind of man would succeed in it, and how. Like that's what Breaking Bad was. This was like, oh, we want to tell a hustle story, and let's just pick a random kid, like the most random, like this, a situation that this would never happen to. Let's see how this situation happens, and like I lost all disbelief.
My only thing is I like that I did see in it, it did deal with the CIA's
involvement
in putting drugs in urban communities to help fund the war in Latin America and stuff like that. So it did touch on some of that stuff, which I thought was interesting. His character, besides his things of getting into that, through the course of what I did catch up on here and there, it did. Aside from that did start to make a little bit more. He started to fit a little bit more, but it's all that craze of the what do you call it? The hustle stories, like you said. You got
this idolization of like the top gangster and stuff.
The main thing for me in a lot of those stories is always I'm not even gonna get too far into that rabbit hole, but the involvement of the government into those type of neighborhoods with the drugs. So, you know what I mean? It's a lot of times you hear people, oh, this and that. When you come to find out, when you go back and you actually look it up, it's actually a lot of it's true.
Yeah. I know one story I saw that because they wanted to test polio in African American males, they would tell them that they didn't have anything, and they would contact any doctors in that area to let them know what was going on, and then not to alert them of having anything, just to see how the disease progressed. And it would just give them like salt water when they came for like for shots and stuff like that. And these people really did have polio, and it was going untreated because they wanted to see how the disease progressed without any treatment.
Yeah, them experiments. Yeah, it's all of it's documented and it's madness, man. But yeah, other than that, like, and then what I've been playing really, still some Fantasy Star. The Slayer class came out, so I'm still working on Fighter and Hunter, and I still have Bouncer and Braver, and then I have Waker, and Slayer is gonna be the last class I'm doing, because when I do all my augments and everything, like the augments can be used for multiple classes, which is a good thing. So I don't have to make, because there's 10 classes, so I don't have to make 10 separate things. You know, I can make, half that, and it works for all.
That's good.
Yeah.
I haven't played that in a while.
Yeah, I
like I played it when it first came out, and I did everything, and that's when they had that drought of content. When they just started doing like those overworld bosses that would show up during the rain.
Yeah.
I did that. I was doing that. I got to like max level. I did a fighter and a hunter. And then nobody was playing it, so I stopped playing it. But like when I was playing it, oh my god, I had the community. I mean, I had the economy like under wraps. Like I was making bucks. That game was so much fun with the community.
In the
like
new one?
With the economy. Yeah. Fantasy Star Online 2 New Genesis.
Yeah.
Yeah, now it's a lot of change now, but it's the same old rinse and repeat.
Yeah.
My thing is, I just like it only because, like, when you try to do, because I'm actually trying to do all the classes, everything. This gives me something to do. You know what I mean? So by time you gather everything and this and that, it takes a long time and a lot of currency to do that. So, and the one thing I do like about that, like I always say, the end game is not difficult. You don't need to like call 10 people, be like, hey, you gonna be online tonight? And I need you to, it doesn't work like that. They have urgent quests. People jump in at a certain time. That's it, and I think that's what separates it a lot from other MMOs, is just that aspect where you don't have to, have 20 people per se in your guild to actually do something. You can just go in, get out, and be done with it. So, and they did advance the story. They added some more chapters to the story, so, and it's interesting. And
like you're like into the actual plot, because I couldn't tell you what the hell was going on in Fantasy Star Online 2.
Well, it's pretty much this whole save the world bit. Trying to build a stronger arc. You know what I mean? Trying to build a stronger how I should say this, like team of fighters or whatever, to take on the nemesis that's supposed to be coming from somewhere else. I forgot what they call them, but it's like this one guy did an experiment between the dolls and the arcs, and you're trying to create an arc that is supposed to be able to be strong enough to defeat enemies that are coming, the actual real enemies. But now the arcs are starting to find out they were created. They're starting to find out the dolls were created for them to build a stronger army to face a greater threat. So that's where that kind of comes from. Like in the beginning, you sit there throughout the earlier part, and you're like, okay, this okay. And then you find out, oh crap, it's like a science experiment. What's going on with this dude? So, but I think it's pretty interesting. Like I said, I mean, with any kind of MMO, it's always rinse and repeat. It just takes time for certain things to come out. I actually enjoy playing the game only because, like, I can play for a little bit here, get stuff done, and be done. But it's PSO, which has a large presence overseas versus here.
That's true.
A very large presence, so.
Yeah,
but I think
to get it released over here.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
How many years later?
Yeah, I think it was
too many.
More than. Yeah. And it's funny because like level 75 is supposed to be here sometime in June, I think. June, July, something like that. And in Japan, they're already at that level cap. Like in the regular PSO before it became New Genesis, the cap was already like 75. If I'm not like, if I quote that correctly, 75. It was something real high before it finally came over here. You know what I mean? So, but yeah, everybody was waiting on that game to come over here finally. like finally for a long time. So, but
Okay.
Ooh, do I play Final Fantasy? Oh,
Yeah, Spartan Cortana's asking, do you play Final Fantasy 14?
no, I haven't played none of the newer Final Fantasies. I do have them though in the collection. I'm a Final Fantasy head. I love collecting them. I just haven't played them. So every Final Fantasy that's come out so far, I actually have brand new. They probably won't be opened.
14's the MMO. I think that's why they're asking.
Yeah.
Oh, is it the MMO? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did play it when it first came out. I still have the original PC disc before they remastered it into the Realm of the Reborn.
Right.
Because people were having all sorts of trouble with the original.
I wonder if that's worth anything, like the disc of the broken Final Fantasy 14.
Yeah, it was. Tell you what, that game was, when I first played it, oh my gosh, I think I lost a quarter of my life to that game. It was just that serious.
Huh.
I'm not gonna lie to you. So, but yeah, I stopped playing a long time ago from when it became the Red Mage. When I got my Red Mage, I stopped after that. And then yeah, I was like, I could already see the writing on the wall here when they started the trials and everything, because that's when you really needed to have a guild of people to run those trials. And it was like, yeah, I'm not about that life.
Fair enough.
You know, so, but other than that, just that and normal anime stuff, you know, so.
Well, that's what's up. Thank you guys for sharing. We'll go ahead and move on to our topics proper.
Ooh.
First up, it's been discovered, I will say, because Sony has not said anything publicly about this as far as I know, but it's been discovered that they have raised, in some cases, like straight up doubled the price of some of their first party games in foreign countries. Apparently this was spotted by a couple of folks on Resetera. But the story that I'm reading from VGC confirm themselves that like stuff like God of War, Spider-Man Remastered, Returnal, Sackboy, Big Adventure, all first-party games from Sony have had their prices ticked up in countries like Canada, in Japan, which is Sony's home country. Argentina has got like particularly large increases, and I'm just curious what you guys think Sony could be attempting to do with this kind of sudden price increase. They increased the price of the actual PlayStation 5 console not too long ago as well. But like this is specifically on the PC side and just on software for their game. So like it seems like this is maybe trying to discourage people buying on PC when they could potentially buy on the PlayStation 5, which is now more readily available, and what might have been the reason why they increased the price of its console in the first place, because they weren't selling enough of them in bulk. So I don't know. Like, what are you guys' thoughts when you hear a story like this?
You guys talk for a minute. I need to go get some tissues.
Yeah, go right ahead.
It's a little to me it's a bully move, you know?
It's a bully move.
If you wanna play these exclusives, you're gonna pay a little bit more money, right? And also deters people who might have a PC and a PlayStation 5. You're like, you know what? Ooh, I want to play it over here because, you know, I'm running my 490 and I want to play it over here because I want to experience it in all its glory. But am I willing to play double for it though? You get what I'm saying? Because if it was like an import issue or something like that, then it wouldn't just affect the PC versions. And also, if they're digital, what other reason could they have for raising it? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like I don't feel like Steam is charging them more to put it on there in Japan or like than they
Canada,
would in the
Argentina.
US. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I feel like they're just, once again, if you want to play this exclusive, you'll pay this money to play it on PC because you might not have a PS5, so you'll pay that little bit of money to play it over here. Or you will get it on your PS5, so that way you just pay that's $70. Now, when we say double, because I was trying to find the Steam prices, because I'm guessing
in Argentina, I saw in that blurb in the article that it said the prices in Argentina for a particular game had doubled. I forgot what game it was, but I did see the price.
For God of War.
Yeah.
And I don't know if online they're selling for what they consider like full retail price, because I can't do the conversion in pesos because. But I don't know if it was already at some sort of discount on PC, because these games do come out, sometime after they release. Like God of War in particular was several years old when it first came to PC. So I don't know if it launched on PC at like full retail price, but now at whatever price it's at, they've started to increase it by $10, $15, double the price. Like, are they? I'm curious. Are they now at like full price, like the way Nintendo kind of doesn't lower the price of their first party games, even though that's all within their own ecosystem? Like, this is Sony making it higher on one store versus their own store. That seems like something you could sue about, if I'm being honest.
See,
also,
and
okay,
I would say, and this, that to me makes no sense, because this is why Microsoft and Xbox, when they did their whole subscription service, that to avoid stuff like that.
Yeah. Because when you sell a game over here and overseas, $50 here, are they still trying to get $50 our currency from another in pesos, instead of just what the equivalent to $50 would be in Mexico? And I don't mean like the direct exchange, like, that would be, we're going to charge what $50 US would be. No, I mean like based on their economy, let's say equivalently, like $50 over here is like equivalently not directly in exchange, but more so, I guess you can't say how much it would take to earn that. I'm not sure how that would, like $50 in the U.S. is a lot more over there, not just because of conversion, just because of I don't know. I'm trying to spit it out.
I think that's what Lampy's saying. Like regional pricing.
Yeah, I think
regional. So not just.
But when I'm looking here,
rate of $50.
But I'm seeing here like they're charging. One person said they're charging $250 and what do they call it? Rubles? Rubles in what's Brazilian money?
I think that is rubles.
Okay, they're charging
real,
250 in
like
real, and in real 250, which is 50 US.
I mean, I would assume if it's $50, you're gonna go with the exchange rate of $50, whatever that country's exchange rate is. I would assume that much, because if you're selling a game over here for $70, you're not gonna discount it somewhere else,
right?
For that. So, but
actually, you are. I mean, that's what regional pricing is.
Is it discounted? How much is it discounted from?
I don't know how much it's discounted per se. I mean, I wouldn't call it a discount. I think it's more just that if the vast majority of gamers in a certain region can only afford so much money, then that's what they're going to sell the game for. I think what they're concerned about is that, like Lampy said, and I've heard this through the grapevine as well, just that people use VPNs to get games from other, to say that they're in a certain region to get a game for much lower than it would be if you just straight exchange the currency.
So is the idea that this is an attempt to stop that sort of behavior? Because I can imagine like that's the sort of behavior that is probably at the same level of like general piracy, where folks just don't pay for the game and steal it somehow.
Well,
and it's
wouldn't that be that would be the way around this pricing, because essentially they would be buying the game as if they were in the US. Or we're saying that because the only way that would work is if they were trying to punish people, let's say, who were in the U.S. and saw that they could get the game for
cheaper outside
the U.S. and then changing their VPN.
And
would you punish a whole region?
What they're saying. Yeah, I think that's what's going on.
That's crazy.
Okay.
That they might be trying to stifle that sort of behavior by punishing a whole region.
That's
which is essentially what happens when you when companies try and do specific things like DRM, let's say, or de novo, to try stave off piracy. Like, piracy is an issue, but like they end up punishing kind of a larger group of people when they try to address this smaller
okay.
That's crazy.
I do wonder about doing this now, and I would need to check the prices myself. But if Tom over at VGC has done it, I trust him. But I mean, we're talking about games that have been out for a while, like Spider-Man for PC, God of War on PC, both of which have been out for a while. And if they're changing the prices, part of me also wonders if maybe like economic decisions in those countries that have nothing to do with Americans are playing a role as well. But I mean, I'm not conversant enough in global economy to be able to suggest that. I just also want to suggest like maybe other things going on besides just Sony is evil and wants more money.
Right.
I also didn't see what double was.
Yeah,
because it said double and 67%, but not what the actual figure was. Because
I can give you the figures. Hold on.
Okay, because I didn't see that in there anywhere.
Hang on.
Because if the game was $10 and they doubled it to 20, I mean,
those are that article gives you the exact figures how they've changed. I think it just wasn't in the original VGC article. But yeah, I don't know all of the specifics. I'm absolutely not saying, by the way, that Sony isn't evil and greedy. I don't want to give the impression that is a completely outlandish thought that Sony just wants more money. But I do think that if they wanted to get it, that would be a really weird way of going about doing it. Is just like, hey, let's raise the prices of games in Argentina, Canada, and Japan. That would be that. I mean, maybe I don't think they're that sneaky. So I think there's. I just think there's more. There's an underlying economic cause that I'm not conversant enough in the topic to be able to theorize about.
So essentially, it could be possible that those particular regions have had, I don't know, maybe some sort of economic upturn. Like their people have at some point, like after some sort of evaluation, have been found to be able to afford these higher prices, and like they've been undercharging for them for a while now. So Sony's like, all right, let's update the numbers, and then boom, you get price increases all over the lands.
Yeah. It just comes off a little bad, especially with just the increase of the PlayStation 5 console on its own, and then these price changes come out with no context.
Yeah, there's definitely no context for
it. So it just perceived as even worse.
And in addition to that, like, yeah, you can't ignore the perception of it. Like, even if you do want to try to rationalize it and give them the benefit of the doubt, like, it's all over the news nowadays that Sony is the market leader by quite a lot. Right. So, like, when you're sitting at the top of the throne and then you're steadily raising prices here, there, on hardware, on software, that just seems like the wrong direction to move. Like, that's monopolistic behavior. Like, you're free to do that because you're at the top, it seems like.
And go ahead.
I just want to say that as well, all the writers that I consulted about this, by consulted, I mean I read the stories that they wrote about it. Everybody I saw, and I didn't have time to check Twitter or social media, everybody is US based. So I would love to hear from maybe somebody
the actual countries themselves,
who is in Argentina, who is in Japan, and who's in Canada, who might have a better understanding of the economic conditions in that country.
And also, my thing is also this, like, especially just the optics of it is, you just raised your console prices. You were just complaining about how with the whole ABK situation with Microsoft can raise prices here or all that whole jazz. I'm not gonna get into that. But if it was because there was a economical upturn in these areas, I wouldn't want to be the first one to raise prices. Now, if you were the one, like, let's say Xbox, Microsoft did it first, or Nintendo did it, and then everybody started to fall in line, like you were second to do it, I feel like people swallow that a little bit easier, as opposed to you setting precedent for raising prices in those areas, without any context. Once again, you were first to do it. Like, as soon as the report came out, let's say there was a report that said, oh, these places are doing a lot better. Financially or economically, like the exports, imports, whatever was going on there, it's like they got some money. You jumped to do that before anybody else as opposed to like, especially with your reputation, like try to be like just be second, like be okay with that. Like okay, we're following suit with Microsoft. We're raising prices in these areas since they have been doing so well. Just because we've been taking a loss for X amount of years. It also just seems strange that it's on PC. Like if they were going to take a loss, I feel like they would take a loss um on the PlayStation 5 side as opposed to the Steam side if they were putting it
Why?
out at a loss. Just because everything's done in the house. They could get that money back from Steam just to put it on Steam. Like, hey, if you want to have this on Steam, we need X, whatever, like we've seen them do before. Like if if they wanted to have something cross-platform or whatever it is. All the documents that came out in the was it Apple versus Epic situation where they were paying how much they were charging to have certain things put over there. Like they could get that money back from Steam. Like oh, normally we charge you 10%. We get or every quarter on the dollar we would get or whatever 75% on the dollar we would get. We now want 85 cents on the dollar to help make up for the games that we're putting on your system at a loss in those regions. So it just seems a little weird that it's just on Steam.
Well, see, if I'm not mistaken, actually Sony, the hardware in the newer consoles is not the same as the original per se, if I'm not mistaken.
That is true.
So now the PS5 is actually
like cheaper to make,
but you're charging more compared to the original. So that there is already foul. So, and my next question would be why these particular games, they've been out for a while. So why are you doing these just to these particular titles? Yeah. Well, that's all we see. I wonder, are there any other titles that we don't know about that
they've done it to before?
That they've done it to beforehand, or is it just these specifically?
Well, I don't mean the first overall Olympic. I mean the first as far as what we could in the video game ecosystem. So like Microsoft or Nintendo.
Well, they aren't.
Yeah.
I mean, Nintendo's raising the prices of their games in in the US too.
I mean, that's across the board. That's what I mean. Like they're doing it across the board, which seems less of, like let's say there's four of us here and somebody just came and singled KC out. Like KC, we want more taxes from you for, I don't know, whatever it is. Like, Casey will go, what about everybody else that's here? We're all on equal footing. Like, what's the difference? It's different if you're doing it to everybody, and no one can say, "Hey, why are you targeting us?"
But we're not on equal footing. I mean, that would assume that like Casey lives in a place where up to now he's been paying like 15% taxes, and we've all been paying like 25% taxes.
Well, they're not going to raise it to the exact same amount. They're going to raise it to what the equivalent would be to. So like once again, $60 here, they're gonna rate $60 there might be 200 pesos, not the equivalent exchange, but also what $60 would be in that economy. So that's what I mean by equal, where they're raising it across the board because maybe it was to show that if they just raise it in these countries like Colombia and like Argentina and stuff like that, it just seems like why specifically these places? People are less likely to complain when it's across the board as opposed to 2 or 3 places.
Yeah, I think like a couple people were mentioning in chat, like it's a little too complicated to get like a solid answer as to
you can't just say like we can't just convert everything back to US dollars and be like, okay, this is all like, oh wow, things are so much more expensive in this region than they were. I mean, it really is more like I don't want to do that because this is not related to the US at all.
It's like a case by case basis sort of thing.
And also, I would point out that the US didn't get the PS5 price jump. Like that was in other countries, but that wasn't in the US. Which I mean, you could take. I mean, maybe that's to account for the fact that it's this is like maybe such a big market that they don't feel the need to jump that price up.
Or you're already charging more.
Yes.
As opposed to,
Yeah, which would bring us all up to equal footing.
Right.
And, sort of raise the tide for all ships. But
so
I think this is just a ridiculously complicated, financial.
Oh, for sure.
And I do want to point out, because it got me thinking, since this generation started, kind of everybody had decided like it's time for the prices to go up, right? And like some folks have been like more resistant than others. I cannot remember who was first to be like, all our brand new AAA games will be $70. Like I want to say it was like 2K or something, but like Sony was quick to jump on that as well. Like it took Nintendo this long to be like, all right, Tears of the Kingdom is going to be $70.
Right, and they said a case by case basis as well.
Yeah, and they're still kind of being kind of half-hearted about it. Like Sony was very confident from the very beginning that they could get away with raising it to $70. So it is a perception thing, and I guess the issue is like probably a lot more complicated than we're able to fathom. But at the end of the day, whenever a multi-billion-dollar company like that is raising prices, it's not because they're hard up, right? It's because it's because they need to make more money than they did the last time, and they go where they can to get it. And if that's increasing the price in certain regions because they can, like they maybe looked at whatever, like, okay, we're legally allowed to based on these factors in order to like squeeze money and get ourselves this much higher above the red line.
And also, as the consumer, it's not my concern what your reason is. It's not my job to figure out your reason. It is your job to educate me on why I'm paying more for the exact same product.
And I do think that's fair, because then you'll just reject it.
Yeah.
Well, and my problem with the whole thing is that, you've got, you can say like, okay, inflation, games are getting more expensive to make, so that has to, that has to come out of the price. And, because, we can only chisel so much off of our production overhead. You can say all of that. And yet at the same time, you can also point out that a lot of the games that we could be, that are being put out nowadays, and I'm just going to use like whatever the next Bethesda title is, are broken. Like all the people who paid money for Last of Us Part 1 on PC, and that was broken.
Yeah,
and that's something that I personally like find particularly offensive about this whole thing, is that yes, you can raise. I understand inflation. We're all going through it. You can sell that to me, but if you're going to do that, the games better be immaculate when I buy them. Like I better be able to take. I better be able to take a whole day off work and be able to like play the new Elder Scrolls game or whatever all the way through. There better not be a single bug. Better not be a single blue screen, whatever. But like that to me is the sticking point, is that, games are getting more expensive in response to inflation. They're also getting like less done at launch.
Yeah, less quality is coming out.
They legitimately,
she said,
like all of this paints a picture. Like whether it's true or not is a different thing, but it definitely does paint a picture that Sony does not care about the PC environment. Like it's an afterthought. It's something that they did as maybe a last ditch effort to try and bolster sales and costs, because it is getting more and more expensive to make these sorts of games. And like they need a secondary revenue stream after some time has passed, since they specialize in like big single player adventures that do have a shelf life. So it's like a PC release is like another shot in the arm, but like they don't necessarily want to do it. They have to do it.
I'm thinking it's just me. Like they could be making bank on the PC market. Like I don't mean like they don't need to do like a day one release, but maybe a couple months later. A lot of these big PlayStation games coming out on PC, like they could be making bank, and I feel like they're just leaving all that money on the table just because they want to keep everything over there. We just got God of War on PC how many months ago, and that's been out.
But
quite a while.
To be fair, like that was, they only started like this initiative, I want to say like
with God of War
and some change ago. Well, no, the first one wasn't God of War. The first one
was it Horizon Zero Dawn?
Horizon Forbidden West, I think.
Yeah. So like that was the first one where it was like, oh, this is going to be a thing they start doing now. So like, sure, like every big first party thing we can maybe expect, with the exception of Bloodborne for some reason.
Well, I think it's also, we shouldn't expect them to develop a piece, because like they mentioned in the chat, like you shouldn't expect them to necessarily like develop the big console version alongside a PC version.
Right.
I think that they are always going to put focus on the console version first.
Absolutely. I just mean as far as, there doesn't need to be a day one release. And I don't even expect it. Like, I really don't care. Honestly, I have one. It doesn't matter to me. But I just mean that that's money left on the table, because if someone's going to buy it,
it's not through the PlayStation ecosystem. It's dirty to them, and they don't necessarily want it. Like
they do have to do price. They do have to do revenue sharing with Steam.
They don't want to launder it. Okay, gotcha.
But it's interesting. We talk about this, and Nintendo's hasn't dropped a lot of its prices on certain critical games, and within its own ecosystem, it still does well without ever going on that, without even touching that system at all. Period. End of story.
Yeah.
Like
Sony
the only
wants
way.
that.
Yeah.
Well, with Nintendo, they built for so many years on family-based games, a lot of it, and it still hold true to this day. When it comes to, they don't really have to compete like with everybody else. They just stay within their lane.
Yeah, they're not part of the high-end console market.
And it's just interesting to me where a lot of the games, like if you go buy Mario Kart right now, what's the price of Mario Kart right now?
$50.
It's 60, right?
It was 50.
It's the same price of what it came out. If not, like you can never really find some of the higher, some of the better titles of Nintendo. You rarely ever see a price drop. Like it is extremely rare. It stays the same for years for some of those games.
Even when they do sales, it's always like the third-party games that are on sale,
like
or the indie games.
Or if you want I don't even think it's a discount, but if you go buy a Switch, you can get it with Mario Kart. But still, if you go buy Mario Kart or even when the new Zelda comes out, I guarantee you probably 2-3 years down the road, that price is still going to be the same.
Well,
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, like that is true. But what's worse is that Breath of the Wild will probably still be the same price.
Still be the same, right?
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? So, that part is just interesting to me. Where Microsoft and Sony are trying to get into markets that Nintendo don't care about.
I wouldn't necessarily say that they don't care about them. I think it's more just that they've realized that it is better to like keep everything within their own like
Bubble.
walled garden, where the only way you can get those games, the only way you can play Mario Kart or Bayonetta, the only way you can play those games is if you pay the $60-$70 toll, and we're gonna pay it because we want to play those games. I want to play Tears of the Kingdom. I've got it pre-ordered for $70, and it's not like I'm made of money, but that's just that's the price I have to pay, and it comes down to, are you willing and able to pay it?
And it's exclusive to their machine and their machine only, which they have only ever sold at a profit.
Yeah.
Like Nintendo gives you like
you save that money
years
on your
old
Joy-Cons.
hardware so that they don't have to take a loss when they sell it to you.
It is funny to me that our attitude is sort of like, Sony, you evil money grubbing assholes, you raise the price of your you raise the price of your consoles, you raise the price of your games. Meanwhile, Nintendo is like, what are you gonna do? They make really great games. I want to play them.
It's like, we just gave you a Mario movie. Deal with it.
They're not completely like separate. I'm just saying that it's interesting.
You're 100% right. The perception.
We give them a pass. We give Nintendo a pass.
Nintendo doesn't get a
or
pass.
at the very least, we accept that we can't change them.
Yeah, I think that's more the case.
They're grandfathered in. Nintendo is grandfathered in.
Like, because the stuff Nintendo does legitimately does infuriate me. But it's like,
what are you going to do about it?
Yeah, you can't do nothing about that.
You can't.
There's not even like waiting until the Black Friday sale or something. Nintendo's like, what Black Friday sale?
Yeah.
No such thing.
We'll give you Raven Rabbits 20% off.
And this game that has our character that we technically didn't make, sure, you can have a discount on it.
And it's interesting when they came out with the emulators on the Switch to play the older games and stuff, and they were still charging the whole you pay a subscription, you can have like all these old games. Like only Nintendo can somewhat get away with that, and people will still pay that just to play some of the old stuff, knowing that unless you have an emulator on your I don't even probably maybe get away with that, I guess. But just the fact that Nintendo's really the ones that can get away with that, and people really won't. Like I said, like they get a pass sometimes for a lot of things that we would complain elsewhere.
And GameStop, you figure they would have this is where they should have capitalized, though, especially Nintendo games. You sell the used ones for obviously they were selling them for like 55 instead of 59. That was their used version. $5 savings. You sell them for like $40 the used versions.
That actually feels like a discount.
Yeah, it feels like a discount. Yeah.
Well, they have to get the used versions for like $2.
Yeah,
in order to make that, in order to justify that level of discount.
It's like $2.
And now I mean, we feel like we've covered a lot of economic ground here just in this one topic. We've covered Sony, we've covered Nintendo, we've covered GameStop, we've covered regional pricing, we've covered economic differences in different regions, in different selling regions of the world. What do we? I mean, we need to cover Xbox, shouldn't we?
Funnily enough, that's our next topic.
Hey!
Thanks so much for that transition. So we'll get into our final topic here, which is essentially a bit of a back and forth argument. Jeff Grubb, notorious industry info insider, right, has said that he has some sources that have sort of let him know that the sales of Hi-Fi Rush, which is, you know, that rhythm-based action adventure game from Tango Gameworks, owned by Microsoft, which was shadow dropped during their last like kind of very focused conference. Developer Direct is what they called it. That internally the sales did not reach what they needed it to reach, despite it being kind of a big critical and hit, I guess we could say, because that's the only metric that we are able to measure, right? And very shortly after that, Aaron Greenberg kind of refuted this claim, saying that like by all measures that matter, something. What was the quote he said? By all
in all key measurements and expectations.
Yeah, in all key measurements and expectations, they couldn't be happy with what team at Tango Gameworks delivered with this surprise release. And so that doesn't necessarily say yes that we were happy with its sales. It essentially says like for all of the metrics that we wanted to pay attention to, it performed the way we thought it would or wanted it to, right? So that doesn't necessarily mean that what Jeff Grubb has relayed is incorrect.
Wrong, right.
But it also doesn't say that it also leans to the fact that maybe Microsoft didn't care that it wasn't a big seller, right? But then again, we don't know. Like the public never really knows what the sales figures are for games that release into Game Pass from Microsoft's first party. Like it's very Netflix-like. But we have started to see on the Netflix side that company sort of unravel because they haven't seemed to be able to recoup what they spend in terms like of like they're starting to panic. They're like cutting things. They're changing their model because they do seem to be hemorrhaging money. Microsoft, who is known for having deep pockets thanks to Windows or whatever. Could this be a similar situation? And like, could Aaron Greenberg be maybe covering the tracks a little bit now that maybe some of the cracks are starting to show with how Game Pass operates? Because it does seem like it operates very similarly to how Netflix does. So like, I'm curious what you guys are thinking with this kind of back and forth.
Was this why you invited me on, Casey?
Yes, guilty.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. Well, I'll just say, as you know, 'cause I know Jeff, and I've worked with him for a while, and because we worked together at GameSpeed before he moved to Giant Bomb,
right? And
I will say, Jeff is not like he's not someone who's out here throwing out wild speculation.
Right.
If he heard it from multiple people, and enough that he considered it a fairly reliable piece of intel. So I trust that what Jeff, the intel that Jeff had, the sources that he said, I trust that he heard what he heard. And like you said, Aaron Greenberg refuting that was very precise in his
the wording is very specific.
That I think that, maybe it didn't hit the number, the monetary numbers they were expecting. But I also think maybe they were kind of hoping that wouldn't be the big takeaway because I mean, after Jeff said this, a lot of people were like really like worried about what Microsoft would do with like Xbox after like, okay, here's this game that we just shadow dropped in everyone's laps, didn't make the money that we thought it was going to make. Oh God, are they going to shut down Xbox? Some of the speculation really got that excited. And I think they basically just wanted to pull it back as like, I look at it as basically them saying, listen, Hi-Fi Rush did well in all the ways we expected it to do well. That's it. End of story. And even Jeff was like, okay, yeah, that's fine. Fair enough. Let's move on. So that's the way I read that situation.
And I think that's fair because I don't want to call Jeff Grubb alarmist, but the tone of that story definitely seemed like, oh, this is a problem that first party Xbox games released into Game Pass aren't selling, because the takeaway from that sort of a statement is like, all right, well, Game Pass is the problem. The fact that they don't just sell a game to people means that people can't buy it, therefore it doesn't make money. So Game Pass is inherently flawed. Like, that's kind of the stepping stones that people come to, right? Which is why you could get from there to Xbox is in trouble. Like, Microsoft might divest themselves of the entire deal, right? Because all their cards, all their eggs are in this Game Pass basket right now. But
well, I was just gonna say, I also think that when Tango and Microsoft, they know what they're doing. They know that when you put a game that no one has heard of, when you just release it the same day you announce it on Game Pass, people who have Game Pass are going to play it on Game Pass. They're not going to pay $50, $60, $70 to buy the game to play it when they can already play it on their subscription service. They knew that's what was going to happen. Mm-hmm. So if the issue was sales were stagnant because it was on Game Pass, well, they knew that was going to happen. So I feel like it has to be something else maybe behind that, because I don't think anybody at Xbox would have expected people to be like, oh, it's on Game Pass, let's go to the Microsoft store and pay $60 for this new game that we've never heard of before.
Yeah, that's not going to happen. Yeah. Because if you don't advertise something well, you're not going to, get that many sales from it if you're not blasting it all over the place. So you just kind of like, well, we're going to put this out. Let's see how well it does. If it does well,
I want to say like that's kind of that statement has two sides, because if they didn't advertise it, then sure, it can't reach as many people to possibly purchase it. But it also means they didn't pay for advertising, which means that the game itself costs less in terms of its overall budget. And then again, this is their whole business model. Like, this is something that they're making internally. So if they release it into their own service, the number of people who pay for that service, like, this increases the value of that. It might garner some new subscriptions, but every single month that someone stays subscribed is just revenue that just falls into that company. So like, we just don't have that information. We don't know if the number of people subscribed is offsetting all of the money that they put in to put games back onto it, to like go out and buy extra like external games to add to it. Like, we don't know, because all we get is, sort of general statements of how many subscribers are paying and at, what rate the current subscription fee is.
Yeah, see, in my opinion, with Xbox and their subscription services, when people don't have to spend, I don't know how many games are on Xbox Game Pass right now.
It's always hundreds.
Right. So
never any less, never any more.
All right. So imagine you're paying $20 to $30 a pop for each one of those. Mm-hmm. You think people are really going to pay that much for that many games each pop?
No.
So when they throw something on a subscription service like that, it's like, well, we know we're going to take it. I mean, like you said, we never really see like any numbers. Obviously, we'll never see any kind of metrics or numbers of what is success when it comes to when we put it out here versus a AAA game, like somebody's waiting for like Elden Ring or something like that. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
Like something like that, so it is very hard to try to gauge what is successful on the subscription service when you just drop a game on there where it's like, well, if we can make something off of it, we good. If we get more people, we good, type of deal, a casual sense about it. But just in reality, if you have certain games, you're going to market better than others per se. But if you can drop games and people are willing to play and you get more subscriptions, I personally think you would be fine with that. But you're not going to have people play. If you have hundreds of games on your subscription service, you're not going to have people playing $20 to $30 for each of those games per se. You know what I mean? So, that's kind of like, is it a big deal? I don't think it's personally a big deal per se, because it's good for the consumer itself. If I get to play hundreds of games for $15 a month, I don't care what you drop on there. At least I get to try it without paying
Yeah, without
$30,
having
$40 for it.
right, like you already paid something, and like you feel like it just increases the value of the thing you pay for.
Right.
And we've seen
Suggestion.
games make a resurgence on Game Pass. Like they came out, they were received okay, and then they hit Game Pass, and everybody started to try it, and then they're like, "Oh my, this is a lot better than I thought it was." And a lot of these games see that because of it being on Game Pass. They wouldn't have gone out and paid $60 or $70 for it, but because it's free it's free with your Game Pass subscription, you can give it a try.
Suggestion.
Mm-hmm.
And something I not necessarily related to the sales, but something I noticed when they released Hi-Fi Rush. I have noticed that Game Pass's like big releases, like the month where they dropped like 9 major games in 2 weeks on Game Pass, I noticed those are starting to slow down a little bit. Like we're not getting as many big, massive releases on Game Pass as we used to.
Mm-hmm.
And like there have been some weeks when they haven't had a day one launch at all. And so I can't help but think that at least when Hi-Fi Rush came out, its purpose was to sort of tide over, because that was during like a really big lull in Game Pass, like Game
There
Pass
haven't been a lot of
publicity.
first-party exclusives. They haven't had a lot of first-party exclusives.
Yeah, and that
coming
is
out.
Yep.
Aside from that,
like
Yeah, I think it was
Atomic Heart was a Game Pass drop,
day
right?
one. Yeah.
Yeah, Atomic Heart.
That was fairly recent.
Redfall's coming up.
Yeah, Redfall's coming up.
I don't know if they're going to release Starfield on Game Pass.
They
I don't
had
know that yet.
Minecraft Legends.
Minecraft Legends, yeah.
I think. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Rachel.
I was just going to say, I think that, during that particular part of the year, it was getting a little bit quiet. They knew it was a little bit quiet. And so I think they were actually waiting with Hi-Fi Rush to drop it at the strategic moment of like, hey, we got this really awesome, fun game that Tango Gameworks has been making, which I'm amazed that more stuff didn't leak out about Hi-Fi Rush before it was shadow dropped.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'd heard the title, I heard nothing else about the game, knew nothing about it whatsoever, and it had been in development for years at that point. So I think they were waiting for an appropriate moment to launch it on Game Pass. I think this was always meant to be a big Game Pass attraction.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think there's a world where they're like, hey, by the way, in 6 months we're launching this really cool game called Hi-Fi Rush on Xbox and PC. I think it was always something like, especially within the last year or so, something that they plan to release on Game Pass as a sort of like something to fill a quiet period in the release schedule.
Now, do you think the lack of advertising is due to the amount of money for the budget? Because people say is whatever you spend on the game, double that, and that's what your marketing is supposed to be. Do you believe that they saved all that money because it was a day one drop on a Microsoft presentation?
I would say that actually, well, I mean, consider the fact that only 1 year before Hi-Fi Rush, Tango Gameworks had launched another game, which was Ghostwire Tokyo, which they did advertise very heavily and a lot. And I think they were planning to have more of a, like marketing period for Hi-Fi Rush, like maybe about like 3 to 6 months, I would say. But when they saw, I think, like I said, when they saw that gap in the calendar coming up, because I'm sure they've got these planned like long time in advance, I think they said, okay, let's just launch it, because clearly marketing a whole lot, I don't think that did a lot for Ghostwire Tokyo. I don't think it even made the bestseller charts. So I think they were just like, hey, let's just put this out there and see what happens. I really think there was a hint of experimentation to it, like what happens if we just drop this really awesome colorful game on Game Pass.
Lampy in chat is saying something to a similar effect. It says it could have also been a marketing exercise. Remember that most gamers do not have Game Pass or watch directs. They may have been trying to see how many new subs or flat out sales they could get from people who have Game Pass doing the marketing for them. And yeah, like that word of mouth is a real factor.
Ding.
Not something you can necessarily plan for. So that's the kind of leap of faith that you wouldn't normally see from a big company. Like,
well, I mean, this brings up a topic that, I mean, again, not related to the original issue, but I kind of want to hear you guys' thoughts on it. Do you think maybe we market games, like the games industry, do you think maybe they market games too much and start too early.
They definitely start too early, in my opinion. But it's hard to say whether they market too much, because like if you don't market, like the chances of you being found organically are almost zero. Like you kind of gotta get like say for a couple of marquee franchises that are just ubiquitously known at this point. If it's something new, like you have to find a way to get it in front of people who and have it spread like wildfire in that way, because otherwise it will disappear. Like no one will ever hear of it.
Well,
Yeah.
see, the marketing aspect about certain games is what I personally don't like. Is if you market something early and then you have to shelve it for 2 or 3 years.
Yeah,
And
Or
then now,
delay it because
or,
COVID.
right. Well, that's what I mean. Sorry, not shelve it, but like delay it for so long. You keep delaying. Now you just kind of like fizzle the intrigue of people of this game coming out. They really want to see more of it, or is it close to completion? Um, in my opinion, if you're close to completion, yeah, then you kind of just market out. Yeah, delays can happen with anything. We all know that.
Mhm.
But sometimes that early marketing doesn't do you too well if you end up being delayed so far back, and now you just kind of like, oh, I remember this game was supposed to come out 2 or 3 years ago. It's coming out, and it's like, well,
But
you
do
know what
you
I
guys
mean?
can consider an announcement the same as marketing, just acknowledging the existence of the game as
A little
opposed.
bit.
Yeah,
So
it's
just
marketing.
just saying the
It's
game
market.
exists.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's marketing.
Yeah.
So in my eyes, I feel like that should be okay, because a lot of times, like we see it very often with Metroid, the next Metroid game coming out that's been announced how many years ago?
Huh. Yeah,
I
at
think
this point.
3.
yeah,
Perfect
yeah.
Dark, right? Sometimes just knowing the game is coming out is enough for some people. They don't necessarily they know the game is going to be years before it comes out. Um, I think the issue runs into when we announce a game coming out and it has to get delayed multiple times.
Like,
Is when it's
yeah.
yeah, like we saw with the Suicide Squad kills the Justice League. Like we see those type of things. Oh, this game is coming out. It's getting pushed back. Quality controls. Yeah, great. Take your time. Let's make it come out. Right. Then it's about to come out again. You're like, oh, you know what? It can't come out now. We're gonna push it back a little bit more. That to me is when the issue evolves. Just saying that. Oh, this we're working on this game. No release date yet. Just know it's coming in this lifetime. Just know, and hopefully in yours. It's coming out.
Yeah, there's a whole spectrum there. Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to point out Tyrell 007 in chat says, can definitely predict good word of mouth, make an excellent game. On the surface, that sounds simple enough, but like I feel like a lot of devs make what they believe is an excellent game.
Good.
And
Yeah.
then
Nobody makes it.
when it hits
Yeah.
public perception, they realize it's not what the public wanted. Just like Suicide Squad, like they spent all this time and energy making a big live service thing, and by the time it got out, because that game took however many years to make, it's like the ship kind of sailed. Folks are tired of the live service treatment.
Right.
And Suicide Squad is not as hot a property as it would have been like 5 years ago.
Yeah.
I would actually say like Cyberpunk is a good example of that. It's like,
Cyberpunk,
yes,
yeah.
everyone was really excited for that game, yes, but I mean,
bugs.
long development time of, hey, pushback. And this is like 7-8 years after they'd originally announced it with that big cinematic teaser trailer. And then, it finally launches and everyone's like, oh, this is kind of a friggin' mess. And I think there is a spectrum here, because you could also say like, well, Tears of the Kingdom, for example, didn't get any like major marketing at all until relatively recently. And, even though it got delayed, basically they said, hey, we're working on it. Here's a short teaser trailer. And then, getting pushed back a little bit. And it's like, oh, by the way, it definitely is coming out this year. Here's a huge trailer with everything you wanted to know about the game. And which isn't to say that's a great way to do it either. Just, that's an alternate of, there's a whole spectrum here of like potential marketing. And I feel like Hi-Fi Rush is like on the way extreme end of it, where it's just like, hey, by the way, we're making this really cool action rhythm game. Oh, by the way, here it is. Hey, here you go. Have fun.
Now,
I think
would
it's
it be
different when it comes to a new game as opposed to an already established franchise. There's very little you could say or not say about Zelda to stop people from buying it. As long as they see the Zelda things are going on and it looks good, there's very little one could say to be like, oh, I didn't like the way that looked. I'm not getting Zelda. Or, oh, it got pushed back again. I care less about it. Like, I feel like there's very few who can do that.
And that's Zelda. That's very Nintendo Genjutsu as well. Like,
right, yeah. So, do you guys think they should bring back? You know how way back in the day, how you used to have demo discs. Do you think that maybe the company?
A conversation about demos and stuff on the last breakout podcast.
Like that Street Fighter demo that just came out.
Like I mean, it would be nice to say, let's see if you can see a game on like Xbox or PlayStation Store or something like that. Like they give you, like everybody gets a chance to have a free demo, a little snippet to play it a little bit here and there once the game is very close to completion somewhat. Mm-hmm. I understand that's what you have alphas and betas for. But when you come to real close to completion of the game, do you think the advertising would be better if they had little snippets of demos where people can play, like way back in the day where you got the disc on PlayStation 1 where like you had up and coming demos you can play, you know, something to give people a feel about, you know what I mean?
Like let's make this clear. That was still marketing.
Mm-hmm.
With the advent of the internet, like they don't necessarily have to put a game in your hands in that way in order to get you excited about it anymore. Like they can just show you video to like turn the gears in your head, right? So that's probably why that's fallen to the wayside. But as good as that is, because I do agree that getting hands-on, like getting demos out there of the games is the best way, especially if it's a good game, to sell it to people.
Did that. Yeah.
Like that's an expensive thing to do. Like that is marketing budget to build a piece of a game that they can send out apart from the full thing. Like they have to dedicate specific people to cut something out of the thing. And then they also need to, like, that's creative energy too, because you have to show off the right part of the game. Because you could build a demo
and you have to finish it.
Yeah, you have to finish it. Yeah, you could build a demo that doesn't really sell what your game's core experience is going to be. So like it is effort, and that does take time and money. Like in the way that some folks will complain about, like, oh, you put multiplayer in a game where you're not focusing on blah blah blah, and it's taken, or cosmetics, and it's taken away from the game. Demo creation actually does take away, because the people who are making that game have to make that demo. So like that's a balancing act that I can understand why some companies are like, well, let's forego it, or let's do this route that's maybe a little easier, because we can get another team to like cut a trailer using gameplay footage and stuff. Like we don't have to stop what we're doing to make a demo.
Yeah, trailers are usually made like by film companies.
Right. But like I agree, like the demo is probably the best way to market your game if it's a good game and if it's a good demo.
Yeah.
And that's how I'm looking at. I understand like when you have nowadays where people are cutting costs, inflation, all the companies trying to get every cent out of every game per se. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Paying the developers and whatnot. But I'm just thinking about, back in the day where you used to get a demo disc in the mail or whatever, and you would tell your friend about it, per se, hey, try this. This looks pretty good. Bring the excitement of, just bringing that. I understand it might not be fine. It's just one of those things where, okay, are we going to give the customer this, or are we going to do this to save money? Where are we going to cut costs? Mm-hmm. What's the marketing budget like? And of course, if the game flops, kind of you eat that kind of revenue type of deal. You know what I mean? It's just marketing is always one of those interesting metrics that when it comes to success, each company, I guess, has obviously dollars speak in success. Obviously, that's the metric. But when it comes to other things as Hi-Fi Rush and what dictates success, it might not be money, depending on how they are releasing it marketing wise.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Like
so
maybe it did its job marketing wise, because there was a ton of like good positive buzz about Microsoft, about Game Pass, about the game itself. Like maybe that's what they wanted, and they're happy with that. And the sales just don't matter.
Yeah.
By the way, speaking of games that had free demos, Bayonetta Origins had one. I'm just saying they still do them.
Yeah, you can definitely get them here and there.
Yeah.
But it's just interesting to see the dynamic. She over there just.
I'm not biased. I'm
She's
not biased at
as soon as I
all.
get off, this is what I'm doing.
This is my weekend. Yes.
Okay. So
But-
on that note, any lingering thoughts on this particular topic before we wrap things up?
Did you pre-order Tears of the Kingdom?
Did I pre-order it? No, I don't pre-order anything.
That's your problem. Okay.
Is it?
All right.
Is it my
That's
problem?
Yeah. More so my problem with you. But that's
There's no need to pre-order. Like the stuff doesn't run out. It's digital.
true. That's true.
Like you're giving them the money early, like because you like them so much. Like I don't get it.
I mean, I
Yeah.
pre-order some Switch games just because I'm running out of room on my actual like Switch memory. So I'm running out of space on my Switch. So I'm trying to get some physical copies, and physical copies for Tears of the Kingdom are gonna go fast.
Yeah, if you're looking for
Yeah.
physical stuff, then that could be a reason for sure. But like my library is pretty much all digital now. Like I can't remember the last time I bought a physical disc. So what do I need to pre-order for? Unless there's like some extra thing, and in most cases the extra thing doesn't really matter to gameplay. It's like, oh, get a skin for a character in a single player
Ooh.
game. Like I don't care. I don't need that.
Yeah, I just
Yeah.
collect mine. So if I do get it, it's gonna sit there.
Yeah.
So
But I guess that's gonna do it for episode 102. Thanks everybody in chat. Rachel, where can folks find you, and what do you be up to this week?
Well, you can find me at Rachel Kaiser up here, and I'm going to spend this week hopefully trying to not be sick. I would very much like to not be sick.
Ooh.
But other than that, you can find all my Games Beat writing goes through here. I should have my Dead Island 2 review coming out sometime this week. I've also got on my personal blog, I've got a special Resident Evil 4 thing coming out that I whipped up. And today, in fact, we're getting back to Stay Golden Sunday, my Golden
Hey.
Girls post. I know everyone was absolutely just waiting with bated breath for
I
me to
broke
come
so
back
many
from hiatus.
tables.
I know. I know y'all were just waiting for me to come back with that. And then tomorrow we're getting some Masonry Monday. Jeff, if you want some old school Perry Mason, maybe you'd be
Ooh.
interested.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's
Yeah.
that's what we're doing for this week. Just a lot of stuff on personal blogs, a lot of stuff on GameSpeed. It all goes through my Twitter, which you can find up here.
Nice. Superman Jeff, what do you have coming up this week, and where can folks find you?
Ooh. Tomorrow's Monday. I'll be doing some Trials of Osiris, 7 p.m. Eastern on the Open Party channel. Wednesday I'll be back with Fortnite, doing some no build mode on the Open Party channel as well. And then Friday we'll be back with Free for All Friday, taking submissions for Free for All games in the Open Party on Monday, finalizing the game on Wednesday, and that's 8 p.m. on Fridays, Eastern Standard Time. Come out.
Nice. The Fat Stacks, where can folks find you? What do you have coming up this week that you want them to check out?
well, this week I'm trying to get some Fantasy Star in as usual, but the anime store does keep me busy. So if you guys are interested in anything anime, www.thefatstacks.com. Like I said, I'm a lot of the stuff con wise too, as Rachel was saying, I've had some people actually buy some anime stuff from me to get signed. So I do try to have a lot of items from those voice actors. So if you're going to a con, check out the site. I might have that character from that voice actor if you want to get it signed. So I've had a lot of those go out here recently. So I see quite a bit of people go. I even have voice actors actually come up to me when I do vendor shows and stuff like that for some of their stuff that they see.
Like they buy their own character that they voice?
Yeah. Like I've seen, I've had it happen to me. Yeah, it is kind of interesting. You know what I mean? And like I said, that the whole con community and everything, if you've never really been to a con, and like I said, my goal is to become a vendor at a lot of cons. It is a good experience. A lot of good, just regular down to earth people. It's just normal people. You know what I mean? And a lot of times I've heard so many stories, because I've had one guy, I'll give you an example. One guy lost his signature poster or something like that. And he asked me, hey, if you're still there, could you ask, the guy was nice enough to not only give him another copy, but also sign something for me.
Aw.
And it was, I don't know if you guys watched Spy Family, the teacher in Spy Family.
The principal.
The principal,
The
Barry.
old-
Yeah.
Yeah. Barry Yandel, the actual voice actor, he's the one that actually did something like that for. Dope. Yeah, so I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. I was not expecting that, So, but yeah, if you're looking for anything anime wise, just hit me up on the socials. It's the same, thefatstacks.com across the socials. So, just creeping and crawling. So
good stuff. As for me, you can find me at SigmaGears9 on Twitch and Twitter. Later today, Superman Jeff will be joining me over on the Open Party for Super Smash Sunday at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We go for 3 hours. It's one-on-ones, round robin, King of the Hill, competitive Smash. So none of that item nonsense. Get that BS out of here. It's a fun time though. We also commentate when we're not in the matches ourselves. And we help folks who want to get better at the game get better by coaching. And there's a lot of other like very skilled players who will also help you out, give you strategies and whatnot if you're trying to get good in Smash. So come to watch or come to play, one or the other. Outside of that, you can check out streams that I've been doing throughout the week over on The Escapist. I should have a review coming soonish, probably before the end of next week. I just got to write it and edit it. Outside of that, yeah, I can't really think of much. I didn't do a ton this month because, we were filming in Milwaukee for like 2 weeks. So that stuff will get edited and released probably by the summer, if I'm being honest. But if you're, there's not a lack of Adventures Nigh content right now if you're interested in that, because the side quest part 2 is going on right now. Like yesterday should have been the second episode for members. But you can watch the first episode on the website or the YouTube channel right now because it's out for everybody. But I think that's pretty much it. Thank you again, everyone in the chat, for joining us in this conversation. Thanks to my 3 guests this week. It's been fun, as it always is. We'll see you next time. Take care. Peace.
Appreciate y'all.